General Hospital spoilers tease that a new wave of control is emerging in Port Charles, not just a simple expansion of influence, but a quiet yet intense power shift led by Sonny himself. For years, Sonny has been both feared and scorned within the city's political and criminal circles. It seemed that a referendum targeting the docks under Sonny's control, backed strongly by influential figures like Senators Drew and Boyle, would shake his empire to its core. But paradoxically, that very political wave turned into a catalyst, allowing Sonny to once again assert himself as an untouchable force, not only in the criminal underworld but also in the political arena. Sonny's counterstrike began with his team secretly collecting evidence of Drew's past ketamine abuse, a tightly buried secret that, once exposed, would destroy the image of a young senator painted as the face of reform and transparency. With chilling precision, documents, testimonies, and recordings were released, catching Drew off guard and pulling down even his staunchest allies, notably Boyle, a longtime advocate for the McConkey Esplanade project, which aimed to turn Sonny's docklands into a modern public promenade to return the city to its people. But just days after the scandal broke, the image of these two reformist heroes collapsed under the weight of media backlash, voter outrage, and internal investigations. Drew was forced to resign in disgrace, while Boyle quietly withdrew from public life, leaving a massive power vacuum in their wake. Like a predator waiting for the right moment, Sonny stepped in swiftly, filling that void with a ruthless and calculated move. He did not declare victory publicly, nor did he boast to the media as his rivals once did. Instead, Sonny used his long-standing network of shell companies to quietly acquire one of the most strategically significant real estate assets, a plot of land formerly under Drew's control, adjacent to the main waterway linking Port Charles to the inland port system up north. This wasn't just a real estate deal, it was a re-establishment of practical power. The newly acquired land lies at the intersection of legitimate infrastructure and sensitive cargo routes Sonny had silently controlled for years. Now, with ownership of this property, he not only reaffirmed his threatened position following the referendum but also expanded beyond the traditional docks, creating a new transportation network that's harder to trace, more sophisticated, and potentially legal, masked as a real business front. Yet, this overwhelming success sparked a new and unforeseen crisis. The entire political system of Port Charles began to tremble with one question: how could a man, once the top target of law enforcement, who had survived numerous life-threatening situations, take down two active senators and seize control of one of the city's most critical assets in just a few weeks? Former supporters of the dock reform plan began turning on one another. Some believed Sonny had bribed the media. Others suspected help from within investigative agencies. And a growing portion of the public, who had long secretly respected and feared Sonny, began to realize that Port Charles may never have been run by elected officials, but by someone who needed no title yet controlled every critical node of power. The name Sonny Corinthos was no longer confined to mafia corridors or police files. It had infiltrated investor meetings, local newspaper editorials, and hushed conversations at political fundraisers. No one dared challenge Sonny openly anymore, not because there was no reason, but because everyone knew his enemies would fall, not through bullets or street violence, but through information, influence, and a slow, choking strategy. Sonny didn't need to roar. He didn't need to speak. True power, he knew, wasn't in what could be seen, it was in making others crumble before he ever had to act. And now, as Port Charles reels from a crisis of faith and a complete power shakeup, Sonny is quietly rebuilding his empire, more absolutely than ever before. Sonny is entering a particularly brutal chapter in his life, where power, reputation, enemies, and the dark shadows of the past all converge, enclosing him in an unprecedented maze of politics, economics, and emotion. After years of controlling Port Charles's vital strings, from strategic docks to transborder smuggling routes, Sonny now faces a new wave of hostility, cunning, organized, and dangerously sophisticated. Yet instead of backing down, Sonny chooses to weaponize the pressure, using it to reshape his entire empire with greater ruthlessness and strategic foresight. Having survived a world where law is often just a mask, Sonny knows, power isn't granted, it's taken, piece by piece, through battles, failures, and sometimes blood and betrayal. So, when Drew and Boyle launched their referendum to strip Sonny of control over the docks, Sonny didn't confront it directly. He initiated a series of covert operations to dismantle their power structure from within. At the first sign of Drew's vulnerabilities, Sonny struck. His team's secret investigation quickly uncovered Drew's ketamine abuse, a seemingly buried detail potent enough to wreck the career of a rising star in modern reform. And that was only the beginning. They dug deeper into Drew's murky financial ties with businesses linked to international criminal organizations. When this information was, coincidentally, leaked across major media platforms, Sonny never said a word, yet both Drew and Boyle crumbled under the weight of the exposed truth. Drew was forced into a disgraceful resignation. Boyle, unable to withstand political and public pressure, quietly exited public life, leaving a massive power void in the city's core. And when the gates that had long shut Sonny out suddenly swung open, he entered quickly and without mercy. Abandoned assets, stalled projects, orphaned political funds, all were quietly absorbed by Sonny through intermediary firms. Most notably, a key piece of land once secretly controlled by Drew, located at the confluence of the main river and a vital freight highway, was swiftly purchased by Sonny via an untraceable chain of deals. If developed correctly, this property could not only replace the old contested docks but also serve as a new command center for all transportation activities in Port Charles and upstate New York. This control is no longer a metaphor, it's tangible. Sonny isn't just reclaiming his position, he's expanding it beyond anything he ever held before. But with that expansion comes a new kind of fear, not just for his former enemies, but even for old allies. They've realized Sonny is no longer someone they can understand, manage, or negotiate with like before. He has become a force beyond any political or ethical framework, an underground government running the city on his own terms, with his own laws, and his own punishments for betrayal. As a result, the adjustments Sonny is now making, in both tactics and persona, have sent shockwaves through Port Charles. Businesses are being forced to choose, cooperate completely or be eliminated. Politicians are learning to stay silent, pick sides, or quickly retreat from all debate. Even figures who once stood at the boundary, both friend and overseer, like Diane, Carly, and even Jason, have begun to notice a chilling change in Sonny's eyes, no longer reflecting emotion, but absolute power, flawless calculation, and the potential for limitless revenge. Indeed, Sonny's campaign of retribution is expanding exponentially. His targets now go beyond those who directly harmed him, reaching toward backers, journalists, judges, even police officers who once ignored or enabled the referendum movement. For each of them, Sonny has a tailored punishment: reputational ruin, frozen assets, unexplained accidents, or anonymous threats too terrifying to record. Day by day, Sonny's empire becomes something almost metaphysical, invisible yet omnipresent. And if once people comforted themselves with the idea that Sonny was just a gunrunner in disguise, now he has far surpassed that identity. He is the one drawing the city's roadmap, the one rewriting the rules, the nightmare growing unchecked, whose name no one dares say aloud. And the scariest part? It doesn't look like Sonny is finished yet. The story continues. And the revenge has only just begun. Drew was eliminated from the game swiftly, brutally, and unexpectedly, a fall that shocked not only the political landscape of Port Charles but also sent tremors through the entire structure of the city's underground power. Yet what made Drew's downfall a historic turning point wasn't merely the collapse itself, but the fact that the man pulling the strings behind the scenes, manipulating media narratives and political alliances, was none other than Sonny Corinthos. The very target Drew once aimed to dismantle through reform. Now, Sonny has risen to claim the power vacuum left in Drew's wake, transforming from a cornered figure into the sole force actively reshaping Port Charles at its core. When Drew was exposed for ketamine abuse, the media exploded with outrage from voters, colleagues, and former sponsors. The praise once lavished upon a senator seen as a beacon of change quickly turned into suspicion, disappointment, and contempt. What few knew, however, was that the entire process of digging, collecting, verifying, and releasing the damning information was anything but random. It had been meticulously orchestrated by Sonny and his loyal inner circle. He didn't need to appear in public. He didn't need to speak to cameras. Sonny was the one in the shadows, calculating every step, waiting for the perfect misstep, and striking when the opening appeared. With Drew's collapse, the system descended into chaos. His signature policies, especially the McConkey Esplanade project, aimed squarely at reclaiming Sonny's docks, were frozen. Investments dried up. Allies who had proudly backed Drew quietly stepped away, erasing their names from related documents. And it was at that moment that Sonny emerged, not loudly, not declaring victory, but with a presence so undeniable no one could ignore it. He hadn't just survived, he had reborn like a storm, sweeping away everything in his path. Sonny began consolidating all the power Drew once held. Strategic plots of land, back-channel relationships, and pending contracts started falling into the hands of Sonny's shell companies. A vast piece of land near the western port, once the centerpiece of the city's urban transport reform, went up for sale after Drew's dismissal. Within 72 hours, the ownership had been transferred to a Canadian investment group with no traceable origin. Yet everyone in the control room knew, this was Sonny's new domain. And not just in property. Sonny also took over Drew's social influence. Media outlets that once championed Drew began shifting their tone, publishing pieces praising Sonny's patience, his underground economic restructuring, and his vital role in stabilizing Port Charles's trade zones. One paper even suggested that, without Sonny's quiet presence in the docks, Port Charles would have long fallen to foreign criminal syndicates. From being hunted, Sonny was now being framed as the necessary balance between legitimate authority and street-level reality. This wasn't just a personnel reshuffle, it was a paradigm shift. Sonny no longer needed to hide. He was no longer just a smuggler or arms dealer in the shadows, he had evolved into the true architect of the system. Investment councils began inviting Sonny for consultations, not because they wanted to work with a crime boss, but because they couldn't function without him. Even major real estate developers had to check with Sonny's people before touching any project near the docks or urban transport hubs. Meanwhile, Drew, the one who once rallied cries to sweep the shadows out of Port Charles, was nothing. Stripped of office, abandoned by his community, shunned by friends, and facing potential criminal investigation for using his position to shield murky personal ties. Once a predator, Drew was now the perfect prey, without refuge or defense. And the very man who had been his target, Sonny, was now the one holding the sword above his head. The insane twist few saw coming had played out. Sonny, once supposed to be destroyed, was now the only one left standing, and more powerful than ever. Drew, who had symbolized justice, renewal, and political might, was taken down not by a bullet, but by truth, strategy, and fear. And what made it all the more terrifying was the question everyone thought but no one dared ask aloud. If Sonny could do this to Drew, who in this city could possibly be untouchable? Port Charles now belongs to Sonny, without a doubt. While the official powers are still trying to understand what just happened, Sonny has already moved on to the next chapter in his grand design. A chapter in which he is no longer just a kingpin, he is the man rewriting history. And those who once dismissed him will soon realize, this twist was only the beginning. The story Diane holds, about the strategic recalibrations taking place behind Port Charles's power structure, is far more than a string of legal technicalities. It's the trigger for one of the greatest political social shocks the city has ever seen. As Sonny's most trusted lawyer, who has stood by him for decades through both open courtroom battles and clandestine maneuvers, Diane is no longer just an advisor. She is now the heartbeat, the breath, and the keeper of secrets for an empire that's stepping out of the shadows. While the public is still reeling from Drew's downfall and Sonny's spectacular rise, Diane has realized they're only witnessing the tip of an enormous iceberg. The adjustments Sonny is quietly making, from restructuring dock ownership, expanding into strategic real estate, manipulating media narratives, to influencing underground financial networks, are all pieces of a self-contained ecosystem of power. And Diane knows, if left unchecked, it could spiral beyond anyone's control. That's why she begins investigating, not to betray Sonny, but to understand the full scope. Yet the deeper she digs, the more she uncovers insane connections between seemingly unrelated deals and old enemies Sonny had once crushed or manipulated. New names are rising, hidden behind out-of-state and even international investment firms, players who've never faced Sonny directly but are now infiltrating the very system he's rebuilding. This makes Diane realize, a new offensive is forming. And this time, it's not targeting Sonny's territory or physical assets, it's aiming at his greatest vulnerabilities, loyalty, reputation, and the legal web that has protected him for years. This battle doesn't come with flying bullets or pools of blood. It comes with ruthless financial warfare, where a single falsified report, a suspicious transaction, or a leaked email chain could bring down Sonny's empire in a flash, to the horror of the entire city. With the instincts of a seasoned lawyer, Diane sees it all before anyone else. And while Sonny remains focused on solidifying his new territory, Diane is caught between loyalty and alarm. She must choose. Stay silent and keep shielding the man she's devoted her career to, or step in and stop him before everything collapses. In that uncertain space, the shockwaves begin to intensify. A string of secret subpoenas land on Diane's desk, demanding clarity on the finances of 3 Sonny-linked companies. A former associate from Drew's team leaks to the press that Sonny may have rigged the referendum through covert sponsorship networks. A major newspaper, silent for years, suddenly drops a damning 18-month investigation suggesting Sonny used personal influence to get judges to quietly seal his old criminal records. These attacks are not random. They are calculated, relentless, and worst of all, they don't just target Sonny. They're coming for anyone who ever stood beside him. Diane realizes she's being watched. Every step, every call, every legal move, monitored. And when she understands that she, too, is now a target, the truth hits. This game is bigger than she imagined. Sonny may be the centerpiece, but even he might be just one piece in a massive, long-planned revenge campaign. Port Charles is heating up by the day. Each small shock stacks upon the next, pushing the city closer to a boiling point. Diane knows that one misstep, a leaked recording, a coerced testimony, could dissolve everything Sonny has built. And she knows that if she doesn't act, it won't just be Sonny who falls, it'll be her, the family she's protected through the system she helped design. And the fragile balance between darkness and light that still barely holds the city together. This war has gone too far. It's no longer about who controls the port. It's about who has the right to rewrite the order of Port Charles. And Diane is the only one who sees the full picture. But what will she do with that truth? Stand by Sonny, or prepare an escape when it all implodes? The answer won't just shape one man's fate, it will determine the future of an entire city. Sonny's continued tightening of control over the Piers district in Port Charles is not just a move to restore power after a series of recent political upheavals, it is a message, loud and clear. His empire has not only been revived, but is now expanding faster, deeper, and more aggressively than at any point in the past. The docks, once the lifeblood of illicit trade, underground commerce, and criminal influence in Port Charles, are now fully in the hands of Sonny Corinthos. But this expansion goes beyond property and economic clout. It signals the beginning of a new era, one where insane moves, high-risk decisions, and even unprecedentedly sophisticated crimes are being triggered, executed, and protected by the very systems Sonny now controls with an iron grip. The piers, with their strategic location linking the seaport and the inner-city transport network, have long been the heartbeat of underground operations. But never has this area felt so alive, and so dangerous. Old warehouses are being renovated in highly unusual ways, without going through standard approval processes, absent from any public planning documents. Yet guarded 24/7 and constantly active with unmarked transport vehicles moving in and out day and night. While the city discusses surface-level redevelopment projects, something else is taking shape beneath the ground, a secret network, new tunnels linking storage hubs, access points encrypted with advanced tech, surveillance stations staffed by unidentified personnel. All of it points to one truth: the piers are no longer just a transit zone. They've become the coordination center of a new underground power network, a parallel world operating within the city, completely inaccessible to outsiders. And it is there that criminal operations are being escalated, in ways more refined and elusive than ever before. Gone are the public exchanges at the docks or broad daylight shootouts. Now, it's encrypted e-contracts, international shipments under legal business names, and rebranded goods upon entering Port Charles territory. Illegal cargo, from weapons and classified tech to next-gen stimulants, is no longer smuggled in small batches, but moved at an industrial scale. The most terrifying part? Everything is flawlessly masked under the guise of legitimate logistics, supply chains, and publicly licensed infrastructure investments. Sonny no longer needs to give orders for each job. The system he's built runs on its own, an automated machine protected by layers of legal, financial, and even political insulation. Key members of the city council, once his adversaries, have either been replaced or are now being manipulated with sensitive information they dare not let surface. The Port Charles Police Department, while still projecting strength, is battling internal leaks, loss of jurisdictional control, and funding shortages caused by a wave of businesses suddenly redirecting investments, many of which are shell companies under Sonny's umbrella. In this climate, acts once deemed outrageous are slowly becoming legitimized in ways no one expected. Nighttime construction projects, cargo shipments bypassing customs, unknown figures attending political galas without being on guest lists, all are fragments of a bigger picture. Port Charles is being manipulated by an invisible network, untraceable and immune to traditional enforcement. And at the very center of that network stands no one else but Sonny, the man the city once believed had passed his prime, now proven to be the one controlling the heartbeat of its entire underworld. The most frightening part? No one dares to question it, because everyone knows. To challenge Sonny now is to confront an entire system, one made of money, law, media, and force. And anyone who tries may not only lose their career, they could lose their life. The piers are no longer just a destination. They are a symbol. A symbol of invisible power rising, power that no longer fears the light. Because even the light itself is now guided by the hand of Sonny Corinthos. Port Charles has never been closer to total control than it is now. And unless a force emerges that's bold enough, insightful enough, and reckless enough to overturn the board, the entire city will become the perfect stage for crimes executed flawlessly, without a trace, and with no end in sight.